Okay, so today we're starting a new lesson, 2-2, comparing and ordering rational numbers. And this is on page 69 in your book, so make sure to have your book open and follow along. Now I've written numbers 1, 2, and 3 down, and we're going to talk about how to answer them correctly. Number 1 says, explain why 0.28 is less than 0.28 with the bar notation. So girls, why is 0.28 less than 0.28 with the bar?
Because 0.28 is a repeating number.
Which one?
The one with the line over it.
Yes, the one with the bar is a repeating number. That means it's actually doing this forever. The 28 keeps repeating. So once I compare these two numbers now, this 0.28 just ends, right? It's just 0.28, boom, done. But this one keeps going and going, and when a decimal keeps going longer with more numbers, it's bigger than a decimal that just ends. So 0.28 is definitely the bigger decimal. Any questions about that? Yes, whatever I write, you write. Okay, make sure you copy all these notes into your math journal. Okay, number 2, it says, name 2 fractions that are less than 1/2 and 2 fractions that are greater than 1/2. So now I have to think of fractions less than 1/2 and fractions more than 1/2, okay? So for less than, I'm going to keep a 1 on top because that will ensure that this is going to be smaller than 1/2 if I keep a 1 on top. And I want my bottom number to actually be bigger than 2. So give me a bottom number that's bigger than 2.
3.
3.
4.
4. Perfect. So these 2 fractions are less than 1/2.
Wait. Is it 1/3 and stuff like that?
And the way that we could prove it is we could get our calculator out and turn them into decimals just to make sure. So if I do 1 divided by 2 on the calculator, I'm going to get 0.5. What if I do 1 divided by 3? I'm going to get 0.3 with a bar. And if I do 1 divided by 4, I'm going to get 0.25. So when we're looking at decimals like this, to compare them, we want them all to be the same length. And I noticed that my 0.25 is 2 places after the decimal, but the other ones are only 1 place after the decimal. So I need to make the other ones have 2 places after the decimal. So I'm going to add a 3 to this one because it's got that repeating 3. And I'm going to add a 0 to this one. So now everybody has 2 places after the decimal, right? Which one is bigger? 50, 33, or 25? 50 is bigger. So we did it right. We made 2 fractions that are smaller or less than 50. And now let's make 2 that are bigger. So now that you watched me do the smaller ones, do you have any ideas about how we could make bigger fractions than 1/2? Okay, so to make a number more than 1/2, Cameron said that we could use 2/3. We want to make the top number more than 1, and we could leave the bottom number as a 2 or make the bottom number a different number. So Bella, you give us one now. Okay, and so Bella gave us a fraction of 4/7. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide all those out just to make sure they are bigger than 1/2. Okay, so we already know from last time that 1/2 is 0.5. 2 divided by 3. Who has their calculator that can help me? And 4 divided by 7. And I'm just going to cut this one off, even though it goes on and on. I'm going to stop it at 2 decimal places. Okay? And so I want this little guy here to be 2 decimal places as well. And since it's a repeating decimal, I'm going to add another 6. And then I'm going to add a 0 to my 0.5 so that it's all the same length. So now if I look at all these numbers, Cameron, 50, 66, and 57, are these two down here bigger than 50? Is 66 bigger than 50?
Yes.
Yes. Is 57 bigger than 50?
Yes.
Yes. So we did it right. Okay, we have all numbers that are bigger than 1/2. For number 3, it says, are these fractions in order from least to greatest or greatest to least? And please explain. So something funny about fractions is the bigger the number that's on the bottom, the smaller the fraction. Okay, so if the number's bigger, it's actually a smaller fraction. If the number is smaller, it's actually a bigger fraction. And we can find that out, again, by dividing on our calculator. So if I do 5 divided by 11, I get a decimal of 0.45, and the 45 keeps repeating. Let's divide the next one. 5 divided by 12. I get 0.42 if I'm rounding. 5 divided by 13. I get 0.38. And 5 divided by 14, I get 0.36. So look at all those numbers of decimals that we just made. Are they going from biggest to smallest or smallest to biggest?
Biggest to smallest?
Mm-hmm. Biggest to smallest, because 0.45 is bigger than 0.42, which is bigger than 0.38, which is bigger than 0.36. So these fractions are greatest to least, which is what we're going to write, because that's the question they asked us. Are they least to greatest or greatest to least? Again, if you ever need to put fractions in order, you're always going to want to divide it out on your calculator. It makes it much simpler and quicker to see which one is bigger and which one is smaller. Okay, remember, pause the video so you can copy all the notes and problems down into your math journal, because I want you to have all this information in your math journal. So for numbers 4 and 5, it says replace each circle with a greater than, less than, or equal to sign. So I have to tell which fraction is bigger, which one is smaller, or are they equal to each other? So the easiest way to do this is, who can guess? What should we do to figure out which fraction's bigger or smaller? We did it on the last 3 problems.
Wait, are you calculator?
Yes, use your calculator and divide. What'd you say, Bella?
I think it's 3/4.
Okay, Bella's predicting 3/4 is what? Bigger or smaller?
Bigger.
Okay, so when I divide 3/4 on my calculator, I get this decimal. And what about 7 divided by 12? So since 0.75 was 2 places after the decimal, I'm going to stop this one 2 places after the decimal as well. So now I have both my decimals. Which one's bigger?
0.75.
Yep, Bella was right.
I knew it.
Your prediction came true. Good work.
Good
Okay.
job, Bella.
The tricky thing with number 5 is that we're dealing with negatives. So remember, when you're dealing with negatives, you always got to think a little bit backwards. So I'm going to put my negatives down first so I don't forget that I have negatives. And what's 4 divided by 5?
4 divided by 5 is 0.8. Negative.
Negative's good. Negative 0.8. And then this one,
7.
it looks like the 7 keeps repeating. So I'm going to write it like that.
So would the 7 be bigger? Or
Yes. Why?
because it repeats and it's bigger.
But we're dealing with negatives.
Oh, because it's closer to the 0.
It is closer to 0 because it's 0.7. 0.8 would be a little bit farther away from 0. So the
Oh,
0.7 is actually bigger. That was good, Cameron. Nice job. The last section, we chose number 10 because it has the most things going on, and I want to be able to show you how to solve that in the best way that you can. So, one thing to notice about number 10 is that everything is what kind of a number?
Repeating.
Mm,
I have the mark.
some of them. But all of them have what in front of them?
Number in front.
What's in front? A number in front, and what's in front of the number?
1.
In front of the 1.
2. Oh, not negative.
Yes, a negative sign. So they're all negative. So we have to remember that. So when I'm changing a mixed number into a decimal, I'm going to go ahead and write the big number that's out in front before the decimal. Then I can divide my fraction and write whatever that equals after my decimal. So, Bella, what did it equal?
6. What? Did it 66 or 6?
A repeating 6. Okay. Now, since these guys over here have 2 places after the decimal, I'm going to go ahead and write 2 places after the decimal here. So everything's the same length. Now, these guys I could just bring down because I don't have to do anything to them. They're already a decimal. Again, for 1.5, I'm going to bring down the big number, put my decimal, then divide my fraction, and that goes after the decimal. So what is 1 divided by 2?
1.5.
0.5. So 1.5. But remember, I need it to be 2 places after the decimal. So what do I put after the 5?
1.55. Yeah.
Not a 55 because it's not a repeating 5.
59.
Just
0.
a 0. So 1.50. And this is going to help me put them in order. But we have negatives. So we have to think backwards. And it's telling us to put it from least to greatest. Smallest to biggest. I want the most negative number first. Which one of these is the most negative?
66.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that one's going first. What's the next most negative?
1.50.
Yes.
I had a yawn, sorry.
And the next?
Hold on. 1.45.
Negative 1.45. And the last? 1.23. And these are from least to greatest because the number, this number down here is actually the closest to 0. And so it would be the greatest number.
Wait, -1.
Let me know if you have questions. Watch the video again, and you're going to practice with some IXL now.
Bye.
Talk to you soon.